we're putting them in school, and or preschool, and that's actually detrimental.
Well, I mean, we can put them in preschool from 3 to 6. If you're going to do 3 to 6 preschool, then you want to make sure you don't do it for too many hours a day, too many days a week at 3. So, what I always recommend is if you can find a preschool, don't do daycare at all. Children do not need to be put in group environments before 3. They need the attachment security, and they need to be in the physical and emotional presence of their primary attachment figure for the most part from 0 to 3. At 3, they can go into preschool, but just a minimal number of hours a week. I think what we do is we put our kids in like it's daycare. They'll start at 3 from 9 to 3, and that just stresses children out who have been home with their mothers, and now you're throwing them into this group environment and forced separation. So you wean is the word, right? Just like we wean children from breastfeeding, you wean them from the attachment by slowly integrating the idea of drop off programs at 3, but slowly, and then we build up. So maybe by 4, they can do 4 or 5 hours a day. But, you know, everything in America is over the top, right? The circus, NBA games, everything has become over the top.
Hmm.
And so it's the same with school and, daycare. It's the idea that instead of thinking of preschool from 3 to 6 as an incremental weaning away from attachment, we throw them into these stressful situations as if they're adults, as if they can handle it like you would be able to handle it. Not even imagining. As you said, empathy lives in the right brain. So, what has happened to parents today that they can't see that handing their child over to a stranger in daycare at 6 weeks is not right? How can they not feel the pain of their children when they put them into preschool for 8 hours a day or 7 hours a day when they're tiny, tiny children? So it's almost as if there's an empathic, a generational expression of attachment disorders and empathic impairment in young parents today, where they can't even feel the pain of their children. And that's the most disturbing part for me.
Well, let's talk about that other uh, babysitter we have. The the video games, screen time, computers, and the TV, and how that's contributing to anxiety, detachment, and children's development.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, technology, according to the American Pediatric Association, you shouldn't be introducing any kind of technology to your children before the age of 2. That means when you're in the stroller, when the baby's in the stroller, don't hand them your iPhone. It means don't give them an iPad. It means don't plop them in front of television or the computer, right? Until the age of 2, they should have no exposure to technology. After 2, the idea is to, from the very beginning, limit it as much as possible, because technology is designed not to make it sound sinister, but there is something a little sinister about designing technologies that um, create a kind of addictive response in children's brains and adolescents' brains. And there is something a little sinister about that. So, in the name of business, in the name of profits, to design an algorithm that seduces young children and then addicts them to the technology is a little bit sinister. Having said that, it is up to parents to regulate that technology. Those companies don't live in your house with you. They're not forcing you to turn on, to give the children the iPad, or to, they're offering something, and maybe they shouldn't be. But it's parents who ultimately have the last say as to whether they expose their children and how much they expose their children. And I think parents get lazy today, to be honest. Young parents just are fatigued from working two-parent working families and then having families, and then just they come home and they just go, I'm exhausted. Here, take the iPad. Here, you can watch TV for 4 hours. And so I think it is a bit of laziness, because in our day, we didn't have that option, right? When we were raising our kids, and our kids are healthier, the generations are getting less and less healthy. So what I would say is resist as much as possible and as long as possible technology in terms of introducing it to children. And then when it comes to phones, do not give them a smartphone until at least 16 years of age. You can give them a flip phone, or they have these children's Google phones. You can give them until 16. But like Jonathan Haidt says in his book, do not give them a smartphone until they are 16 years of age at all. No social media until they are 16. Limit the amount of time that they are on their video games from the very beginning when you give them the video game. Giving them a video game when they are a young adolescent is, you need to know that their brains will have a tenfold dopamine reaction to that video game than your adult brain. And so that makes addiction more likely in a child. But to implement boundaries, you have to implement them from the very beginning. And then you need to really stay on top of it. And as I said, I think it's used, as you said, as a babysitter, and it's not regulated.